All right, Alexander, let's let me read you. Let me read you from Just the News. John Solomon, a title of an article which says Strzok's newly discovered FBI notes deliver jolt to Obamagate evidence. James Comey had no business meeting with Obama White House on Flynn case, former executive says. Strzok notes were discovered, Alexander, and they show that Obama, Comey, Yates, Biden, and Susan Rice were discussing how to get Flynn. These notes were released on 1/4/17. Let me read you just a tweet from Technofog, which says Peter Strzok notes from 1/14/17 released in Flynn case. So it was the Flynn case that released it. Oh, just good revenge. Good revenge here. Discussion among Obama, Comey, Yates, Biden, and Susan Rice. Biden, quote, Logan Act, and quote, Obama, quote, have the right people on. Flynn case. Comey, the Flynn Kislyak calls appear legit. That's the tweet from Technofog, who has documented the Flynn Obamagate saga really, really well. John Solomon has documented it really well, and we have documented it really, really well. And I think we are probably a handful of journalists, I want to say a handful of journalists and analysts who have been saying now for the better part of 3 years that Obama and Biden and all these guys had to have been behind this whole thing. They had to have been. There's no way they could not have known what was going on. And it looks like we now have the smoking gun, the evidence.
Absolutely. Now, can I just quickly say, going back all the way to December 2017, you will find articles which we were writing in which we were saying that Michael Flynn was set up, that this was a case of entrapment. We said it before anybody else did. And we were saying from about 2018 that Obama had to be involved. So, just to make that quick point, let's look at this extraordinary document. Now, it really is an extraordinary document. We don't have it all, but it derives from handwritten notes made by Peter Strzok. And so far as we can tell, it is at that extraordinary meeting on the 4th of January 2017, where Obama, Yates, Comey, Susan Rice, and Biden came together after Obama had met the intelligence chiefs and had been provided with the famous, intelligence agency assessment, in which they discussed the whole question of what to do with Flynn. And this is the day before, there was supposed to be a meeting between Flynn and Trump and the intelligence chiefs. And we know that it was at that meeting that James Comey discussed the Steele dossier with Trump. So this is an incredibly important meeting, the meeting on the 4th of January 2017. And we also know that at this meeting on the 4th of January 2017, there was a discussion about Flynn with all of this group of people. And Susan Rice, shortly after Obama ceases to be president of the United States, on Inauguration Day, Trump's Inauguration Day, sends to herself a memo, and we've unpacked with this memo, and we said what a very strange and suspicious document this was. Well, we now know, because the hints that are contained in these notes clearly point to the fact that Susan Rice's memo is in fact essentially a fiction. It makes out that these people have this discussion about Flynn, but that Obama was repeatedly saying, let's do it all by the book. These notes show nothing was done by the book. They were talking about Flynn. It's quite clear that Comey was telling the president, in other words, Obama, these conversations are legit. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. And it is the politicians, which is to say Biden and Obama, both lawyers, remember, both lawyers, Obama, the great constitutional lawyer, the law professor, the Harvard graduate, the professor at Chicago University. They are the ones who are pressing on the law enforcement people, on Sally Yates and on Comey, the idea of investigating Flynn under the Logan Act. Now, the Logan Act is this outdated, obsolete, archaic law from the 18th century, which says that private individuals should not conduct foreign policy on behalf of the United States. Flynn was not a private individual. He was the national security advisor of the president-elect. But both Yates and Flynn, and Comey, incredibly, went along with this theory, even though they accepted that the conversations between Flynn and the Russian ambassador, which is the subject of this whole discussion, they accept that those discussions were legitimate. And in fact, we've done a program after the transcripts of those discussions were published, in which we discussed how utterly legitimate they actually were. Now, that's already very bad. That it's the politicians who are pushing this Logan Act theory and who are in effect instigating this investigation. We have the president, Barack Obama himself, saying, put the right people on it. So he's essentially pushing Comey to get an investigation launched against Flynn under the Logan Act theory with the right people, in other words, the reliable people. And who was that reliable person? It was none other than Peter Strzok, because of course he was the person who was then sent with an FBI agent whose name has never been confirmed to meet with Flynn, which provided the whole basis of the entire case that was brought against Flynn. Now, the extraordinary thing about this, and this is a point which nobody has made so far as I know, is that these notes, these handwritten notes that have now been discovered, were written by Peter Strzok. Now, they read to me like a verbatim record of that conversation. I don't mean that they are a stenographic record. I don't mean that they are a word for word account of what was said there, but they are the notes of somebody who seems to have been present when these discussions were taking place. So the implication of that is, if that is right, I'm not absolutely sure it is right, but if that is right, then it wasn't just Obama, Biden, Susan Rice, Comey, and Yates who were in that room, which is presumably the Oval Office. Strzok was there also. Now, Strzok is a middle-ranking officer within the FBI. So who brought him to that meeting? We have Obama talking about putting the right people to carry out this investigation. Those right people include Peter Strzok, who is possibly, apparently, in that room and making the handwritten notes of what was said. Now, it doesn't get worse. I mean, this is really bad. And when you say that this is a smoking gun, that's how it's starting to look to me, frankly. Now, whether anything will come of it, whether there'll be any kind of investigations or prosecutions or whatever, I don't know. But if you're looking at this as an outsider, it's terrible. And if you know how bureaucracies, especially government bureaucracies, work, it's even worse. It's just all of the lines of command are scrambled. You see the politicians, Obama and Biden, coming up with this theory around the Logan Act and pressing for an investigation of Flynn. And you see, again, the politicians urging on Comey that the right people carry out that investigation. And the head right person, Strzok, is there making all the notes. So I mean, it's awful, actually.
What the hell is a middle manager, upper middle manager, FBI agent doing in the Oval Office with the president and the vice president? What is he doing there? He is the useful idiot. He's the clown, the ideologically driven clown that Comey has brought in, along with Lisa Page and Assistant Director McCabe and all these guys. They're going to be the foot soldiers to try and bring down Flynn and bring down the Trump presidency. This is as bad as it can get.
Absolutely.
Nothing's going to come out of it. Nothing's going to come out of it. But that we know. But if there's ever any doubt that Obama and Biden are crappy, terrible, the worst people you could ever imagine, there you go. There you have it. All the crap, all the shit that is taking place in the U.S. now is because of the community activist agitator. And this is once again case in point that even the tradition of a peaceful handover from one administration to the other, even that Obama cannot do without agitating things, without creating a big mess. It's like in his blood to do it. And Biden, well, he's going on to the mainstream media, Alexander, and he's making claims that he knew nothing about the Logan Act and he knew nothing about what was going on at those meetings and Flynn. He's on record making those claims. These two guys were the absolute worst thing for America.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is terrible. I mean, it is the President of the United States urging the Justice Department and the FBI to investigate his political opponents, and coming up with a bizarre constitutional theory around the Logan Act to justify doing so. And as you absolutely rightly say, he has his vice president, coming up with the Logan Act theory. But I have no doubt that Obama is part of that too. By the way, we've had all kinds of stories that it was somebody else. It was another middle-ranking official in some agency or other. But here it is. It's in black and white. It's in these notes, which are, remember, contemporaneous notes. In other words, they're made at the time, or so we're being told, by Peter Strzok, and they clearly identify a Biden as coming up with this idea. Now, Biden can say whatever he likes now about how he didn't know anything. Well, perhaps Sleepy Joe has forgotten. He seems to forget rather a lot nowadays. But these things, written at the time by Peter Strzok, tell their own story, it seems to me. I would be very interested in putting Biden on a box and asking him some questions about this on oath. I doubt it will ever happen, but I wish it would.
So bad. It's so bad what they did.
Absolutely.
So bad what they did.
Well,
I'm at a loss for words. We knew this was true, by the way. We knew this was true. We knew Obama had to be behind this. We knew it, and now we have it. Now we have those notes from a middle managing idiot like Strzok, who they led into the Oval Office to take notes. These guys are clowns. All of them are. I can't believe he was running the United States.
Well, that was, by the way, you're quite right about that. If you're going to carry out a secret plot to get the FBI to investigate your political opponents, the last thing you should do is bring along someone like Peter Strzok and have that person, writing out notes about it. That shows you that they're both very cunning and very cynical and very ruthless, but also at some level very arrogant and very blundering as well. And it was incredibly stupid, incredible lapse. But there we are. This is the equivalent, if you like, of the Nixon tapes. Only, to be very clear, this is worse, in my opinion, than what Nixon did. Nixon plotted to obstruct justice in order to prevent an investigation of a botched burglary of the Watergate building. What Obama was up to was getting the Justice Department and the FBI to investigate his political opponents during the transition period, coming up with a bizarre constitutional theory and clearly intending to make it impossible for Donald Trump to exercise properly the functions of President of the United States, to which he had been constitutionally elected by the American people. It does not get worse than that.
Yeah. And I'll repeat what I said earlier in the video. All the stuff that you're seeing going on right now, all the bad stuff can be traced to two events: Hillary Clinton and her 13, 17, whatever intelligence agencies thing that she said way back in October, November, that event, and this event from Obama. Everything that you see going on right now, every statue being taken down, the Russiagate, Ukrainegate, everything, the animosity, the tension, the lockdowns, all of it can be traced to those two events. All of it, because it's been a subversion of the U.S. president, the Trump White House from the get-go.
Well, and the Constitution of the United States. When events like this are happening, when the person who has sworn to uphold the Constitution is acting this way, the great constitutional lawyer, I mean, interfering in any criminal investigation in a way that clearly violates, in my opinion, maybe not the separation of powers, but certainly every conceivable doctrine about the independence of the investigating and prosecutorial services, which are not supposed to be used as political tools. That's what happens in dictatorships and quasi-dictatorships, not in a rule of law country like the United States is meant to be. When that happens, then of course the rule of law starts to break down. If it happens at the level of the Oval Office, it's going to inevitably contaminate everything else. And in fact, I get to say straightforwardly, I mean, Russiagate. This tells you everything you need to if you want to understand what was going on in Russiagate. Well, you've got it there. I mean, it was clearly emanating from the Oval Office. The President of the United States was using the country's intelligence and security services and the Justice Department in order to bring down his opponents. As I said, this is the kind of thing, in the old Soviet states of Eastern Europe, it used to happen. It happens in other places around the world. I never imagined it would happen in the United States, but it has. And it's there in black and white, and it's in Peter Strzok's handwriting.
That's the word, contaminate. That's the word. They've contaminated everything.
Absolutely, yeah.